Welcome back to another cult horror movie review. Once Dawn of the Dead was released in 1978, it was, without a doubt, one of the sources of inspiration for director Lucio Fulci to make zombie flesh eaters. It's the most famous Italian zombie movie ever, and it's inspired by not only the Romero movies, but also the more classic voodoo zombies like I Walked with a Zombie. But just before we get going, if there's a cult horror movie you'd like me to review, just leave me a comment down below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel to never miss out on another bad movie review every Friday and cult horror movie review every Tuesday. It's got a big cult following, I understand, but I pretty much didn't like it. I've got a weird love-hate relationship with the zombie flesh eaters because in many ways this is a bad movie, but yet there are elements that do deserve our attention, so I can't completely dump all over it. A ship arrives in the New York harbor with no one on board apart from one of the living dead. This boat belonged to the father of a woman named Anne. He was a scientist working in the Caribbean. After all, he leaves behind a mysterious letter where he mentions some strange disease which has started to spread on the island he was working in. Anne tags along with a journalist called Peter, and they travel to the Antilles to find out what happened to her father. This is what we get. The living dead are resurrecting. They don't hesitate to feast on your flesh. We don't get a clear reason why the dead are suddenly coming back to life. There's talk about a disease spreading, and talk about the natives practicing voodoo and summoning the dead. The story just hints at those possibilities, nothing else. I got the feeling that it was up to us to decide. There are two major problems here. The pacing. It's awful. The film gets a chance to redeem itself a little bit in the final act, but the first two halves just drag and drag. The story wasn't being told in an interesting and compelling way, it was just tedious. Let's face it, everyone remembers Zombie for its pretty brutal and gory scenes where the zombies are just chowing down on the people. But between those scenes, there's nothing of value to offer, and you can't help but notice how wooden the acting is. It's right in your face, you can't avoid it. The character development leaves a lot to be desired as well, because they're very shallow, which is a shame. The critic consensus on Rotten Tomatoes says that Zombie 2 is an absurdly graphic zombie movie, legendary for some gory scenes and nothing in between. And that sums it up pretty well. And that's when I get to the good part at last, which are the makeup effects. They look amazing. The zombies in the Romero movies had a simpler look, but in Zombie Flesh Eater, we get maggot-infested, rotten corpses that slowly start coming out of the ground. It's terrifying. Most of the undead have their eyes closed and walk with their heads down. There's a scene where a zombie even fights a shark. Now, I've got to give the movie props for that. Who would have ever thought? The story goes that it was filmed without Lucio Fulci's knowledge of it. The person playing the zombie was actually the shark trainer himself. Since he was fighting one of the most dangerous shark species, he first had to make sure to feed it and give it sedatives before filming started. There is quite a bit of brutal gore. Fans of bloody movies will definitely enjoy this. If there's one thing I can say for sure, it's that Fulci knew what would make the audience gag and feel appalled. I also very much praise the score by Fabio Frizzi, whether it be the hard-hitting gloomy synthesizers at the beginning with those hard-hitting drums, or those more spacey and hazy synth chords that appear here and there throughout the film, or the African-sounding ceremonial drums. I think that the music here may just be my favorite ever. It hits hard, it sets the tone, and it's effective. It's really too bad that the rest of the film just couldn't follow up. The premise was interesting, the setting was nice, the effects and the music are all great, but yet the acting and the writing are crap, and I just can't respect that. Once filming was wrapped up, the studios in Italy decided to market the film as Zombie 2, trying to pass it off as a sequel to Dawn of the Dead, even though it's not. They're two separate flicks. And it's funny because in the United States, it was just marketed as its own movie, which Fulci preferred. So overall, if you're a gorehound or a big zombie movie aficionado, this will probably please you. Otherwise, I don't really think it'll please a lot of other moviegoers.